some vocabulary refreshers. Non-point source pollution is a variety of contaminants that enter our surface water through means of runoff. So sources of this typically are areas like urban streets and parking lots. Construction sites are big contributors to non-point source pollution. Livestock confinement areas, and then very popular in North Dakota are agricultural lands. So as far as NPS programs go, the EPA allocates money to the non-point source pollution programs in order to redistribute to state and local projects. So the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality is the state agency that houses the NPS program, hence why I'm here today. And we are in charge of managing Section 319 funds, which might be something that gets around a kind of buzzword that you guys hear. As far as the program success, we are very dependent on our soil conservation districts, our non-governmental organizations, universities, and other state agencies to do with the money that we distribute. So the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality, or I should say the non-point source pollution program, has this mission statement, and it is to implement a voluntary program, which I've bolded voluntary, and I'll kind of come back to that. But it is a very important part of the program. Incentive-based program that protects and restores the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of waters where the beneficial uses, and beneficial uses being things like recreation and irrigation, watering of livestock, are threatened or impaired due to non-point source pollution. So projects that are eligible for 319 funding. There's four in particular, I guess, subcategories of projects, and I'll just kind of walk through them here. Development phase projects. These are your kind of on-the-fly projects. Maybe you're looking at starting something and you want just to kind of get your toes wet. These also include assessment projects, which some of you may be familiar with or doing with your SED currently. And those are kind of preliminary samplings of a water body to see what the impairments are. Is it worth looking forward and moving into maybe a larger scale project like a watershed project? So the watershed projects are your comprehensive boots on the ground. You're going out, you're doing sampling fairly religiously. You're working with landowners and producers to implement BMPs and get productive things working for you in that watershed area. Support projects are a little bit different. They look at implementing more of a specific BMP, and they can be scaled to your preferred size. So if you want to take on something a little bit smaller, we can work with that, or if you're looking at bigger. So an example of that would be if you want to do like a wetland restoration project and you're looking at a specific wetland area, or if you have a goal for so many acres of a BMP to get implemented within a county or within a section, different things like that. So, and then the information and education projects are ones that more or less you're teaching people, you're taking news to them, you're giving them opportunities to learn about conservation practices and different ways that they can implement those practices. So as far as timelines go for these projects, usually your watershed projects and your support projects are kind of in that 3 to 5 year range of time, and then your information education projects are 1 to 3 years, but we have extended projects just based on the success of them and people's willingness to continue doing restoration or education. If they're very successful projects, we like to keep them rolling and keep them funding. So this is just a map that shows our ongoing watershed projects. As of now, we have some new ones that'll be getting fired up here April 1st. They'll go active, so that's pretty exciting. But as of now, we have 16 on our project list. Other projects, we have 5 assessment projects currently, 12 information and education projects, and 4 support projects. And just within the past few years, we've had 61 projects that we've been working with. So, where does the money come from? So like I had stated earlier, it does get allocated down from EPA to the states, and we are responsible to getting it out to the individuals who'd like to participate in these activities. 319 funding is a match funding program, so we provide the 60% and you're responsible for finding another 40% non-federal match. And then as far as project sponsors go, or who could help supplement that 40%, you can look into other state agencies, other SCBs, water resource boards, city councils, universities, the list goes on and on. And then I think tomorrow there's also a talk on different cost share opportunities, and those are some, I saw on that list, there's other agencies on there that are pretty popular for providing that other 40%. So that might be something good to look into if you're interested in a project of this caliber. So how can the money be used? These are just some of the things that kind of fall under the umbrella scope of those project types. So monitoring is a big one. We have a lot of projects that go out and do stream sampling and monitoring to help us assess the impairments that are on different water bodies in the state. Financial and technical assistance to landowners while implementing BMPs, and I guess for those who aren't as familiar with the BMP term, more or less that is synonymous with just conservation practices, what you would know is your typical conservation practice implementation. So demonstrations or educational activities, we have test plots that people like to show off and different things that are funded under the projects or through 319 funding. Project development is another one, so use the money to get started on something, don't think you have to do it on your own. And then also staffing costs, so we'll make sure that you guys are supplemented for your time and your efforts. Cost shared conservation practices, this is just a very short list, and I definitely have to say thank you to some ladies in the room for pictures, very much so. But like I said, very short list of the many, many different cost share options that you can do with 319 money. And our website is a really good resource, and so I'll highlight that a couple times throughout the presentation. We have different guidelines that you can reference on there, as well as different documents and guidances for application processes and so on. Speaking of the application process, so there's kind of two different types of application processes. So if you're looking at doing one of the development or assessment type projects, your application more or less is just you coming to us as a department, as the 319 program, and expressing your interest. We'll get you started, we'll get you set up, we'll find you some funding. Sometimes for these projects we have no match funding, it's our 604B funding, and there's some of that available right now, so shameless plug for money on the table if anyone's looking. The best time or the time we prefer that you come to us to talk to us about these projects is usually December to February, just because we can get you rolling with stuff, get things set up for you, and then hopefully start before that upcoming sampling season. But by all means, if there's something that crosses your mind or you want to start something sooner at a different time of year, don't be shy, please come talk to us. We'd love to help get something set up for you. We do a lot of the paperwork as far as like a sampling and analysis plan goes if you're doing an assessment project, and then we work with you to kind of get a budget put together for that project. And then the watershed and education and support projects are a little bit more of a comprehensive application process. So you'll submit a formal application. Your application will be reviewed by our task force committee, and you'll be asked to come to their yearly meeting, present your project and answer some questions, and then they'll go through and kind of decide whether they think your project is well put together or if it needs a little bit of finessing. You'll work with Greg and I. We'll get things kind of squared away. You'll submit a final draft, and then we'll go through the final approval process and get, if everything goes through approved, we'll get money allocated your way. And then this is kind of fuzzy up here, but just this is the cover of our management program plan, and that's something that you can also find on our website. It is a really good resource for anybody who's looking into starting a project. So some things to consider when thinking through what kind of project, or maybe if a project is suitable for your SCD or your agency. First, does the project fit the scope of the program? Is what you're trying to do, does that fall under something that 319 funds should be getting allocated for? If you're not sure, come talk to us. Is the project size and complexity appropriate? So if you're a smaller SCD, try and scale appropriately. Make sure it's something that you know you have the time to go out and do sampling on this water body. If there's 2 sites, if there's 7 sites, you know, don't bite off more than you can chew. Is 319 funding the best option? So know that you have to have that match source, and if you're struggling to find that match source, we might not be the best option for you. Are staff available to execute? Like I said, I kind of keep going back to the example of sampling just because the assessment and the watershed projects are more popular or kind of more well-known projects that we fund. But it definitely takes staff to do all of them. If you're going to do a support project or if you're doing educational projects, it does take staff, so know that you need help and need support. And particularly having support from other entities, other partners, is important as well. So then once you've checked all those boxes and you know, yep, this is the project for me, I found something that works out for our SCD, our board's on board, then we can move on with just the standard project proposal and application process. So this is just kind of an outline of what the standard proposal includes. I just threw it up here for reference later for anybody who's looking at or would like these slides. But I will say that the different projects do have different guidelines for the project proposals, so something that can be found on our website. Here's just a draft up of the application timeline to help anybody who's maybe looking into the projects. So your draft is usually around that October 1st deadline, and then from there we kind of move through November and December as far as the task force being able to review everything, you presenting your proposal to the task force, and then submitting a final proposal. Typically the goal would be to get your project rolling between April and June of the year. And small disclaimer on the bottom, it's definitely subject to change. I know over the last couple of years we've had to do some fluctuating just because of COVID and different things. So things get pushed around, and it's always probably a smart idea that if you are looking to get involved with the project or submit a proposal, to just contact us at the department and we'll get you a more finite timeline so you know when and where you should be. So to wrap up here, just kind of some overarching expectations for the different entities that are involved in these projects. As a grantee, the expectation is that you're going to identify the areas that you're interested in doing the project in. You're gonna work to put a project plan together, your proposal. You're gonna fulfill your grant requirements, so we'll make sure that's pretty transparent to you as what the expectations are. You'll manage the project and make sure you get your match funding for it, and then provide staff. With the DEQ, or the 319 NPS program staff, we'll make sure to assist you along the way. You definitely don't have to go anything blind or alone. We're here to help, so we'll make sure that we provide training, get you your money, that's a big part of it, and then help with some of the report and analysis writing, kind of go through your data, look through things, provide you with reports so you can show your board and show your citizens in that area what's being done, what improvements are being seen. That's always important stuff, is that transparency. And then we'll just oversee the management and implementation. So we'll check on you from time to time, and we do audits and stuff too if you're doing a sampling project. And then the public, which I think is kind of an underrated area as part of these projects, is you really want to know that your people are on board, that your community's on board, that you are going to be implementing something or putting money towards an effort that people are backing. So make sure that you gauge your community, know what's going on, expect them to provide some dissemination of information. You want to give them resources they can spread it. If you work with a landowner and some conservation practice BMP implementation went really well in their area, be like, hey, you should talk to so-and-so down the road because we'd like to do stuff on their property too. You should tell them how well it went. You know, you need their support, you need their interaction in order for things to be really, really successful. And key takeaways, like I said many times, you are not alone in the department, and your fellow grantees are here to help. There's a lot of open individuals that are willing to talk about their experiences with doing 319 projects, and like I showed up there, we have at least one in every category of 319 projects right now, so we can always get you in contact with somebody who knows what's going on or can share their experience on how they were successful with what they did. Projects can be scaled, so don't get overwhelmed thinking that you have to take on the world. You really don't. The program is voluntary, so make sure you gauge your audience, make sure people are aware of what's going on. I think a lot of SEDs send out surveys or flyers or something, or post in like a newsletter to let people know what's going on, and that's always really smart. It gives people a chance to give you feedback if maybe they aren't in such agreement, since sometimes it's hard to tell someone you're gonna be water sampling just downstream of where they're at, because they get a little bit suspicious of why you're there and what you're doing. So, and then training is available. So we will come out and walk you through sampling if you need help with that. If you need some help getting materials set up, that's something we can help you with too. And finally, there is lots of money out there, so please don't miss out and take opportunities. So, and secondary shameless plug for that 604B funding for assessment projects right now, if anybody's just looking into getting something started and wanna ask some questions. So with that, I will say thank you and direct all of my questions to Greg.
Is there any questions for Emily?
Yeah, Emily, what's the difference between a 604B and a 319 when it comes, if you want to do assessments? Because can't you go either way?
Yeah, so you can be funded under either of the grants. Usually if you would already have 319 funding set up, it's a lot easier for us to transition you in with an assessment project using the already funding you have set up. 604B is just no match funding, and so sometimes that works out easier for someone who hasn't had any form of project started.
Oh, okay.
And if there's money available, we kind of tend to favor using the 604B for
So it's like
that
you're dipping
purpose.
your toe in it for the first time.
Yeah, and then when you move into the Watershed project, we'll transition you into like the 319 fund.
So 604B is 100%.
Yep.
Paid for the other 60%.
Yep. And there is a lot of, there's a lot of different entities that will provide that 40% match. And sometimes that gets kind of daunting, but if you have relationships already with your SCD and other partners, sometimes it's pretty easy to get that 40%. I think Dane is presenting tomorrow, isn't he? No? Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
If there's no other questions, I guess.
Awesome.
Thanks again, Emily.
Yeah, you bet.
And then next up, we have Mary, 319 extension. She's kind of like a do-it-all person. So she's got no PowerPoint. She's gonna tell it to you how it is right now. So.
Yeah. Is this connected to the internet?
I don't know.
I'm actually gonna do like it is. Good. Yeah. Perfect.
Maybe you want to introduce your titles. That's right in there for you.
Yep.
So, sorry. Just trying to keep it moving. You can go back to yours if you want.
All right. I'm Mary Keena. I'm the Livestock Environmental Management Extension Specialist. So I work for NDSU Extension, but I'm fully funded through 319 dollars. And so I am one of the education grants that Emily speaks of, and I will, with the reapplication and such, I reapply every 3 to 5 years, just depending on what we have going on. So I'll be reapplying this coming fall. So I've been here for 10 years now, and so this position used to be 2 people in opposite sides of the state, and then it was 2 people on the same side of the state, and now it's me. So that's it. So just a quick overview. I didn't prepare any slides. I'm going to show you a couple educational opportunities that are coming up, but Dustin just asked me to give a quick overview of what I do or how I maybe work with some of you. And so, like I said, so manure management, mortality management is what I do. So anything for extension, if it smells or it's decomposing, it's dead, or it's manure, it's me. And so that's been a major focus. When I first started, it was more so with like the medium-sized CAFOs is kind of where our focus was, small and medium-sized. AFO, CAFO. The large guys pretty well have it figured out and are inspected every year, and so the small to medium are where we were focusing. there is still a focus there, but part of my grant now too, I work with manure haulers, and so that's one of my objectives. So our custom manure haulers get, the ones that want to be touched are touched every year. So next week is our meeting, and so they voluntarily come. We get together. This will be, I believe, our 6th year now of doing that. And so there's a group of like 34 of them, I think I have on a list. And they come and we just talk. So I tell them one thing I want them to know. So that's typically like a calibration, sampling, something educational that would really help us and help the environment. I teach them. Something they want to know. So like this year we're having the DOT come, Trooper Mike has been coming for, this will be his 3rd time now. He comes and he's just very upfront with the guys about questions on weight limits and rules that they're breaking. And like this year he's talking about CDLs and the federal changes that have come to that. And so something I want them to know, something they want to know, typically something business related. And so we've done taxes and how to manage your taxes. We've done insurance stuff. So we've had insurance folks come in and talk about what they should or shouldn't be doing. We've talked about potential spills. So manure spills are more common in a liquid situation, but there are solid manure spills, more so like if they're over the road and something spills or they're leaving their load on the road, what happens then? And so more business. And then the 4th thing is some kind of conflict or something to help them be better people, is what I tell them. And so whether that's conflict management for themselves, working with their employees, a lot of these guys are either working with their brothers, their sons, or their cousins. And so there tends to be a bit of personality conflict in there. But then also conflict with their customers. And so some of these guys just want to go and they want to do their job and that's it. And their customer, and they want to be paid before they leave the place. And their customers are like, all right, when I sell calves in the fall, I'll get you that check. And so then they call me and they're like, well, I kind of want to go beat him up. What should I do? Let's not do that. So a couple years ago, we actually had several, that was a big deal. And so it's helpful because I can connect the guys that are 2 years in the industry to guys that have been doing it for 35 years and talk about how do we manage that. So aside from beating them up like you did, like those guys probably did when they were younger, they're like, here's how you handle that now. And so that's how I work at them. Another objective on my grant is, it's not specifically called small farm, but I like to call it, that's what I call it, small farm manure management. And so we're talking about, there's 2 parts to this. So the one part is like the guys that have 50 cows. So they have 50 cows, they still work off the farm. Likely both people were working off the farm to finance that operation, but they still have manure. 50 cows make a lot of manure. And then we have the horse owners. And I thought it was funny this morning when our producer was talking about selling hay to horse people. And I'm like, oh man, there was a lot of calls last year in the horse community about like, what do we do with this stuff? This is crap. We don't like this hay, what do we do? And I don't really answer those questions. I'm like, well, let me just pass you on to the hay person. But the way I've gotten into the community, so we have 250 people right now on our mailing list where we do a webinar series for them in the spring. This will be our 3rd spring now doing it. It'll start the end of April. We do 4 weeks. We do them in the middle of the day, and that is the best time for them. So we've tried to do live meetings in counties, face-to-face. It's hard because when it's nice enough outside to do the meeting, they're outside riding their horse. They're doing something with their horse that does not involve sitting in a meeting room. And so we've now transitioned away from that. We do it while it's kind of nice outside, so if we have to get some pictures or if we want to do some video outside, we can, but it's still not nice enough that at noon, they're still at work and they might want to come and listen to us. And then we put them all up for them to view later, and they actually view them later. So we have views of that on YouTube. It's really cool. So that's another part of it. And then of course, composting, manure and mortalities is something else that I do. And so working with other universities on that. So those are kind of the programs that I work on. And then the other objective is general manure management. And that's one we all have, right? That you just, all other things assigned. That's what that one is. Okay, so education. So I have no cost sharing. I don't have any money to give anybody. I just go out and talk. And that's good and bad. Some people are like, you have no money. And other people are like, thank goodness you have no money. So you're not selling anything, just your education. Field day events. So I have on my notes, your field or mine. And so I've gone out to your guys' field days, and we'll talk about anything you want me to talk about. Typically it's manure management, or we're composting, can you come do the compost talk for us? Sometimes I have you guys come and help me with my field days. And so if I've worked with you in the past and I know you know what you're talking about, I want you to come and help me teach, because I don't like to talk all day, I'm by myself. And so I often will partner with you guys and have you come and help me. That same thing goes for winter meetings, and then I have on here winter tours as well. So winter meetings would be something that our extension agents would typically organize, or organize with NRCS, SCDs, or 319s. And then they would invite me as a specialist to come out and talk. Winter tours, I've done, I suppose most often with Stutzman County, where we'll go out in like almost shouldn't drive blizzards, and we stand out in these fields and like see the stuff work. We see the systems work. The windbreaks and the feeding systems that are set up, and then they'll ask me to talk about, you know, why is this important? Why should we feed here? Why do we do this? What does it do for manure management? And so joining you guys on any of that kind of stuff, I'm up for. Very likely if I'm gonna come out and do any of that stuff, I always let your extension agent know. So whatever county you're in, I let your extension agent know, hey, I'll be there, they invited me, do you wanna come along? That's just a courtesy of me to them, to let them know I'll be in their county, but then also they can then connect with you as well. Radio and newsletter writing. So there's been a handful of times when you guys have had radio spots and you call and you're like, I don't know what to talk about this week, give me something. And so I'll give you the latest press release that I've done, whatever is new in the manure world, or I'll send you these opportunities. So these are two educational opportunities. Typically if I have something like this, I send it to Greg, and then, so I'll send it to Greg, I'll send it to Mary Podal, and then I send it to the North Dakota Soil Conservation. So like, I suppose now I would send it to Aaron Fields. And so, this one is Waste to Worth. So this is Waste to Worth 2022, or I call it Waste to Worth 5. So this is a 5th event. It's gonna be in Ohio this year. The unique thing about this one, so they're supposed to be on odd years, but odd year didn't happen. Nobody wanted us. And so we moved it to an even year, but now still some people are a little iffy about traveling and we weren't sure if we were gonna have it. And so we're offering it online as well. So I'm going live. I'm gonna present about composting and a project that we just wrapped up with Minnesota. But there is an opportunity here for you guys to join if you can come in person. I got my ticket yesterday, it was only $500, and we're only a month out. I couldn't believe it. But you can also do it online. So when you register, somebody will email you and say, hey, were you planning on joining us live, or are you gonna do that online? And basically what we go through, so let's see, program, here we go. So what happens is you can submit a proposal to this if you want to present at a national meeting. Looks really good on your resume, I'm told. And so you come in, and otherwise you just come listen. So we break them out, depending on what kind of proposals we get, we'll break them out into different sections. And so typically we have an overarching theme, and so Lake Erie is kind of the overarching thing this year, their management of Lake Erie and all of their issues. So we usually have general sessions and we bring in people to talk about that, and then we'll go into breakout rooms. And so we have, usually there's an air quality breakout session, there's like a manure management, there'll be a education, so I'll be in the education room this year. And then this year we actually have a pretty heavy emphasis on mortality management, and so there'll be a mortality session. We do tours, so the first day here then, on Tuesday is tours, and those are actually really fun because you get to go out in the state you're in and see the things that we're actually talking about. And oftentimes then those producers will come to the meeting, and so you get to hang out with them the rest of the week and really get to know what their problems are and what they've done to fix their problems. And then we usually have some workshops that try to piggyback onto that. So that's Waste to Worth. There's all kinds of networking time in there. There's a poster session. There's a grad student poster competition in that. So lots of stuff there. And then the North American Manure Expo. So this is an expo just for manure. It's pretty sweet. I think I'm the vice president this year. And then I'm done for a while. So I was president for a few years. It was a it was a mild wreck because we had all kinds of disease. We had African swine fever the one year that we were trying to do it, and then we had COVID, so we had to cancel it. Then we had COVID again, so we had to do it online. And I was like, I'm done being president. And so this year, it's actually going to be in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. And I got to go to one other one in Pennsylvania 4 years ago, I think it was. Great event. Super people. It's literally out in the middle of the field. And so you walk from the hotel and you go out the back door and there's just a big wheat field. And that's where we do it. We put up a ton of tents. We have about 1,200 people that come to the Pennsylvania location. They by far get the most people. And so we have tours. Again, the tours are nice because they're in the state that you're in. You actually get to go out to producers' places and see the things. And then the different thing though, so there's educational sessions for Manure Expo, but then the other thing is the demonstrations. And so if you have, for me it's been super helpful, especially the first couple of years when I started, because we have a whole line of solid spreaders set up, a whole line of liquid spreaders set up, there's a bunch of composters that'll set up, and we actually demo them. And so we get to see them work side by side, big ones, small ones, for the liquid ones that till, ones that spray, all the things. And it's really helpful to gather the language, the different terms that people use. If you're going to try to talk to a producer and they have a manure spreader question, you're like, I don't know what that is. But you do know what it is after you've watched 17 of them go, and the 17th salesman is saying, well, this is the Turner spreader thing that's going to do this. And I'm like, I know what that is now. I get it. And so it was really helpful just for that. Now I just like to go because it's fun. It's Manure Expo. Where else are they going to spread crap? And it's a great networking event. So I think that's probably enough. That's what I do. So if you guys have questions, you can always, so Dustin has been around long enough to know he's just south of me, and so he'll call and say, hey, so if you guys do have questions, he's the one that asked me to come, but also Greg has all my contact info as well, and so if you do have questions about educational stuff, he can point you my way as well.
All right, thanks, Mary. Next, we're just kind of going through different things that 319 does help with. This is, I'm Dustin with Stutzman County. This is one of our projects, Spearwood Lake. Watershed. The reason I'm going through it is actually I didn't write the grant for it. The City of Spearwood Lake actually wrote the grant. They just hired me as a contractor to run it. The one thing I will say about that is it's kind of awful because I don't have the financials. I just have the BMP side, so I cannot line things up. So I have to try to work with them. If I did it again, I'm just taking the financials with it. They can still claim it if they really want to. I really don't care, but at least then you can control everything and you know exactly how much you have in there. Like I can't say, oh, I'm gonna bill you $10,000 for the last 3 months, and then they might only have 8. I don't know that. So I do like having both sides, so I can run it. But it is very nice that they did it because it shows that they're invested in wanting to clean Spearwood Lake up. When we started it, we're actually on phase 2 now. When we started it, we actually got an RCPP, Regional Conservation Partnership Program with NRCS. We did that for 3 years. We actually had about $300,000. We spent about 108 of it. Very hard, and I'll show you why later, is we have a lot of Ccsp and other programs in this one. There's 2 large farms in it. So that was really good. In-lake, so we started with in-lake. We did nothing in the watershed the first phase. It was all septic systems is all we did. We replaced 11 septic systems the first year. We had them, the city actually made them all get inspected. So I think there was 58 that got inspected or 53 that got inspected. First year we replaced 11. So it's not good odds. Thinking ahead, and we've done more already. So there's the whole watershed. Spearwood Lake is right here. This is actually Shock Lake, then Blue Lake, and then Ccsp Lake, and then the drain. And water comes in this way, and it leaves right here. So it comes in and leaves. It's like a shortcut. So this half of the lake over here, and this is actually 55 feet deep. This lake is. So it's a deep lake. All the nutrients settle over here and they stay there. Like there's no flow through this lake. Historically, we believe it actually used to come through and come out this way into a different outlet. The county built a road. The culvert's sitting this way, and it's about 5 feet above what I think it needs to be. So we can't find any history that proves, because they didn't take any elevations of it, that that's the way it went. So we cannot just divert it back that way. So we're modifying it a little bit. The history of it is back in the 80s. They got a pump right here on this side of the lake, and the pipe that goes to the middle lake, and they pumped it into Shock. Shock Lake is a very alkali lake when it was low, so it was dirty water that's not going to produce anything. We'll pump everything over there. Problem with that is they had 4 or 5 easements that they had to get. They're not all at the exact same level, and one of them isn't perpetual, so that one's terms came up. So you got one that you cannot pump to that level, and Shock Lake is above all those levels right now. It is higher than it needs to be. Even though John Shock, who lives like right here, says he actually like lives on the lake and it's in his backyard, and he says you could pump into it right now, he says. So our thing was we wanted to go this way. We tried that, we failed. I have it up here. State Water Commission is kind of where we failed. That's been very hard to work with. To send your request to them, and then they just pretty much turn it down, or it takes about 2 years before you get it accepted, and then it gets sent to your board, the local board, and then it gets sent back. So we're in that phase. They tell us this summer we should be where we need to be. So we're going to do a Hypothetic Drawdown. It's just a passive system. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a new pipe here and go to this outlet, and then just have a passive system. So you can open it up in the water. You know, it's like a pressure, just like a siphon. It'll siphon that water up and through. And then right here's Alkali Lake, which is owned by the Audubon Society. National Audubon Society owns it, or Dakota Audubon, whatever it is now. They own that, and it does have fish in it. Actually, Shock Lake has fish in it, perch in there, very good perch fishing right now until we have another drought this year, and then it'll probably kill everything off. But Alkali does have really good fish, so people are worried, hey, we're gonna get all this crappy water now. But Audubon's like, we don't want it, because it's got pelican nesting habitat, and it's got other bird habitat, islands. They want their islands back. They're flooded right now, so they actually want their islands to come back. So they're like, we want to get rid of the water too. So, and all we would be adding is about 10 CFS. You know, I mean, it's not going to be anything coming out of there. People think we're pumping the lake out. We're not. It's just a passive system. It would have a, once it hits 14.438 or 42 or somewhere in between there, we got to shut the system down. We can't run it anyways for low level. Another problem is people on the lake want their water, and they want it where they want it. You know, they want it at this level. They don't want it low, because then they can't get their boats out of their docks. I mean, it's not fun to deal with. I can just tell you that. But phase 2, so we spent our money early in the first phase, got to phase 2, and now we opened it up for the whole watershed. Plus, I still had septic system repairs in there, and I did that I just said 3 for the permanent houses, and then I actually put in 7 for the campground. There's a campground on Spearwood Lake that when you come in right here, he owns all of this. And the reason we did that is when I was talking to him, he said, hey, we already knew what was there. We knew they were 55-gallon drums. I mean, we never had them inspected, but you knew, because that campground was put in a long time ago, and that's what they did. They welded 55-gallon drums together, put those down. Well, he actually had 2 houses or campers. He's got some full-times, and when this guy flushed his toilet, it came flying out on the neighbors. So we knew that they're failing. And so what we were able to do this year is we put in 7 holding tanks, 4 of them. So 4 systems go to 1 tank. They're, huge concrete vaults. I do have pictures. I didn't take or bring any of them, put them on here, but so we did do that. So that's going to help out a lot. He's got a whole new campground that's got its own and everything already. So the campground's up to date. Some of those were right on the lake. Like, you just go over the cliff and you were at the lake. So you knew it was a direct deposit right into it. And we've already cost shared 1 other house system. So I mean, it's just this constant problem out there. And we knew that because when we had them inspected, the one guy said, yeah, I was inspecting, and he goes, when I heard the shower go, you could hear the water coming right down below the cabin, so you knew it was just draining right onto the cabin and then going to the lake. There used to be pipes that sticked out that went right into the lake, so it was a big thing that we had to fix up, and they're working on it, and I'm glad the system is the city is the one that, you know, they enforced it. We can't enforce anything. We can say, hey, we'd like you to get your system inspected, but the city actually said, no, you gotta go get yours. And they cut it, they helped cost share it too. So we did our cost share with what we could, and then the city cost shared, gave an extra $50 or $100 too. So that's where we're at right now. The Hypothetic Drawdown system is at the Water Commission, so it made it all the way back down to the local board. They approved it, sent it back up, and it's got to get reviewed. It's been sitting there for a year, and like I said, hopefully this summer, because we were talking, hey, we could have went out this spring if we would have had it, laid the pipe on the ice, made it a little bit easier to get it all ready to go and stuff. But so we started working in the thing now. So like I said, in the 80s, same thing happened. The lake was nutrient rich. That's what it is, because it all settles right there. We take water samples. Anybody sampled 50-foot water before? It smells amazing when it comes up, but probably just like what Mary smells every day when she's working with cattle stuff. So we are, and we are water sampling. I still go out and water sample until I can, until the ice gets unsafe, and then I'll go back out in a boat throughout the winter. But back in the 80s, they put in a pump, and then they put in the terraces, trees, and other BMPs. I mean, there used to be a lot of work that was done around there, and the lake did get very good. It was really good again. All the nutrients came out of there, fish production, everything became really good again. But 40 years later, here we are, same problem. Shut the pump down, never ran it, and you couldn't because it was flooded. Shock Lake was flooded. So we're back to phase 2. There's the pump. So the plan is that's about right here, and you pump to here, and then this is Alkali Lake. There's islands. There's supposed to be islands. You can kind of see one right here, and they want theirs back. So they've actually proposed that. They wanted, trying to work with the Game and Fish and put an outlet here and flush it down. This is 7 Mile Coulee. Those guys get all worried because it's crap water, but we've sampled that whole system and it's already not good water. Like, it's very poor water quality already, so you're not going to be hurting it and you're not flooding the system anyways. But the Game and Fish got involved because Spiritwood Lake has a special fish in it called the zander that was introduced, and they found out. They look like a walleye. It's a giant walleye. I mean, the biggest one that's been caught, I think, was 14 pounds. They caught this 2 years ago. Was caught out of here. But they're in Alkali Lake now, and they're reproducing. They catch them from this size. They catch them to that size. The North Dakota Game and Fish has already been warned by the Missouri River system. If that gets into our system, you guys are going to be hurting pretty much. So they want to put in. They've already talked about trying to put in 2 different fish weirs wherever this water is going to end up, because they need to control their zander population. So we've been working with them too. They've been helping us try to get this, with the water quality and stuff like that, and the fish weirs and stuff like that. But it's still a battle. I mean, yeah, you can still have the Game and Fish on your board, but the Water Commission still can slow things down. And they'll slow this down if they end up doing their fish weirs and stuff like that too. So there's not just one, it just becomes another thing when you start digging into it. Here's an example of the problems I had with RCPP. As you can see, this red and yellow, this is just one producer right here, or green and orange. It's Ccsp Farms, and they have a Ccsp. The other ones, these tan ones, is one other farmer. Those guys farm, about half of the watershed, and all that land was in Ccsp already and stuff like that. So, trying to locate the smaller farmers was really difficult. They didn't really want to do a whole lot under the RCPP program. So we did have these ones. These guys signed up, and then I had one right here. These guys did a critical area planting, another critical area, and then I think they were planting trees right there and doing another critical area. I had 3 critical areas, I think, that we did with it. And then this was a cover crop that we did with the producer. And then with the new phase, it just started this last year. We've actually put in, so what we started on is we had a guy that put in some grass, hayland planting right there along Blue Lake. And my next phase of it is I'm actually gonna work with the cattle. My first phase, I'm gonna call all the people that have cattle in the watershed. I'm gonna try to work with them first. We have one big cattle guy, not really big, I mean, he's probably only got like 50 cows, but they're all just right on the inlet right there. So I'm gonna try to work with him and see if we can't try to fence that riparian area off. We do some self-grazing or something like that. Winter feeding would be a big thing there, cause I mean, he's only half a mile, not even from the thing, if I can get him to do it. I'm working with a producer that's right here, right now on a winter feeding system. I've talked to him and stuff like that. So we do have some stuff moving forward at least. And we do have money set aside hopefully for this outlet if we can get it funded. But we'll see what ends up happening. Like I said, we put in, there's the old 55-gallon drums, working on partial manure management systems. And my next phase, like I said, is working with cattle producers and then the cropland. Any questions on that, I guess? Like I said, it's probably like your most normal watershed project. It's just that I wanted to show you it's not actually the 319 or an SCD employee that did it, it's a city that did it. So you can work with cities too if they're willing to write a grant, I guess, and move forward, so. Matt, we got about 6 minutes.
I can do it.
Okay. Matt's got a, I'm pretty sure it's his Ccsp program. It's just another
Have you,
319 funding.
So question for you, have you heard of anybody pulling up any grass carp out of Spiritwood Lake in the last several years?
I have not. I mean, I know there's a lot of carp in there, but I haven't heard of grass carp.
When I was a fisheries seasonal, I think we've seen the last dead one land on the bank. And that thing was, we figure was probably about 45 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Justin, did you approach the city on this lake, or did they, you knew we thought when they were gonna do it?
Yeah, so they worked with, at the time it was Jim Collins, is who they were working with, and Jim just told them to get a hold of me and we could run the program. And it was back in 2018 when we first did it. And I was just a technician, so for me to take it on, it was just fine, so.
Alright, so my name is Matt Olson. I'm with the Wild Rice Soil Conservation District in Sargent County. No, for you new people, we don't have wild rice in Sargent County. That's just the name of the river that goes through there. So Dustin, kind of following this whole 319 theme, he wanted me to kind of incorporate running a demo site as part of your 319 project. And we've probably got one of the longer standing demo sites out there. I think it was started when 01, 2, well, J. That's hard to hold a candle in. But been around a while. I haven't. I'm relatively new in the grand scheme of things. So we came on. Ccsp is our demo site conservation cropping systems project. So in 2001, there was basically a group of people from southeast North Dakota and northeast South Dakota, soil conservation districts that wanted to team up and kind of really start addressing some of the soil health practices that they were seeing in that area. Namely, small grains and cover crops. So this is kind of, I call this the odd couple. Kelly Cooper is the Ccsp manager. He's also an NDSU agronomist at the Oaks Irrigation Research Site. And I'm the Ccsp technician / watershed coordinator. Now, if you know either one of our backgrounds, you would not think that we would probably be hanging out together. Kelly's a very detail-oriented, research-oriented rock hound. He loves rocks. Whereas I am a fly-by-the-seat-of-my-pants, mile-high view person that really doesn't like getting bogged down in details. I just like to do cool things. Kind of coming together, though, realizing, hey, you know, we come from different backgrounds, but we have the same goal. You know, we want to see soil health principles on the landscape. Nice little picture of some cattle eating cover crops on one of our cropland fields. Oh, biscuits. What happened? Alright, So, CCSP farm history, this is what it originally looked like. Basically, the CCSP board put in a grant, and they rented this whole piece of property for about 15, 16 years. 130 acres is a great site right off the highway, huge visibility. This is our local CHS right there. And it was really just kind of set up to be a classroom to showcase cool things. No-till, cover crops. Ducks Unlimited had a huge presence in there with the grain stuff and the winter wheat program. So a variety of stuff kind of done out there. And like I said, locally led conservation. This was our board picture from a few years ago. Getting a little dated at this point, like we all are. But usually a little bit less on top, a little more on the bottom. But the cool thing about CCSP is it's funded at all levels. I mean, we got funding from NRCS, EPA funded through the DEQ, was Department of Health back when it first started, so. And then locally, I mean, there's been a lot of local buy-in with our project through donations, either with Agtegra, we've worked a lot with them. Titan Machinery usually helps us out with a tractor. Cool thing, people, 319 coordinators, all those donations, those are in kind. Those are match. What did Emily say? How much match do you need? 40%. Gets to be a lot sometimes. It isn't easy to get that all the time. So sometimes you're flush with it, and sometimes you're counting pennies. But that thing is that for every penny you get more than a penny back. So it's important to kind of look at that stuff. We've kind of fallen off a little bit. We kind of had a little bit of a renewal. So this is what it used to do. They'd do one tour basically, mid-July, probably 100, 200 people would show up. Multiple professional meetings throughout the year. Farm talk with Mick Kerr was there many times. But you know, when I came on, kind of one of the things that I kind of brought up to the board was, in looking at everything, it's like, well, yeah, this is all great, but what happens when we leave here? And we kind of had that gut check, you know, rent was going up. It's like, and you know what, 140 acres, it takes people to manage that. So, you know, kind of my vision is like, how can we do this better? So here I am, I put on my thinking cap, you know, what could we do to make this better? Well, kind of the vision that I had is, and I'll tell you, this beautiful site with all these plots, the year that came out, that whole field got tilled. So that just goes to show you that there was no longevity with that project. I mean, we were educating people, and hopefully that carries on, but that soil's already been flipped over 5 times probably. So, how can we do a better job? So kind of my thought is I don't want us to farm 130 acres. I want somebody else to farm 130 acres, and we can help them do some cool things that, you know what, maybe they're not really comfortable with, but we can help them along the way. So, what did we do? As a board, they trusted me, and we came up with you know, a couple of local producers. And the key is finding some common ground, and it's always interesting, the different backgrounds with people. So this is one of our first cooperators. His name is Mark Niener. He runs a custom aerial application business. Interested in soil health principles, predominantly corn and soybean. Well, this is the struggle. If you're in eastern North Dakota, this is what we're facing every day. But you know what? There's opportunity there. Soil health principles. How can we do this? He's got an airplane. Hey, let's broadcast seeds and cover crops out there. There's some stuff we can do. So we've worked with him, trying some different seeding rates, trying winter wheat versus rye. Worked on a couple different things. I've included a couple of videos. I'm gonna test my fate and see how I do. Oh, here's my sound. Good. So anyway, we'll go back to the video. I'll just play it. So this is a cool opportunity. Oh. Oh. Ha ha ha. I'm smarter than you are. So this is a cool opportunity. This is him actually, I got to see how he fills up his plane to fly on the ride. Pretty cool opportunity. You don't get that every day. So I just figured I'd share it with you guys. Because one of the biggest things we need to do is understand how some of this stuff happens. I mean, we always go with, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. Well, yeah, but sometimes we don't even know how that happens ourselves. So if you get those opportunities, it's important to take those. And here's actually him going by this pixelated background. Here he is actually flying. You can see that's the rye seed coming out onto the field. So, not the most scientific method versus, drilling or anything like that, but pretty cool. Pretty cool thing that you don't see very often. And here's another cooperator we're working with. This is Charnel Hawk. He basically was farms right adjacent to the stuff over by Oaks. So Kelly was visiting with him one day, and he happened to hear a video of Gabe Brown on Charnel's computer. He's like, "Are you listening to Gabe Brown?" And he said, "Yeah." Well, they started talking about some of his goals. And Charnel, he doesn't have a lot of land. He has a little bit, and he rents some out. But, his thing's got cattle. And he's trying to figure out how he can incorporate cattle, even with his small crop acreage. So, we've tried a couple of different things out there. Basically, here's our wide row corn demo site. This is 60-inch corn out there with the cover crop going down the middle. Here's the cattle out there eating that after the corn's been done. You can see we've actually got it pretty well down to a science. We used a 4-row header instead of a 3, so we actually got offset, so we're not even running over the stubble anymore. So we're maximizing the grazing out there. And then this picture over here is actually, this is corn on 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 corn. Got told that the soil's not good enough for soybeans and there's no money in wheat. Well, it's like, what if we try oats and then we also follow that up with a forage crop? In essence, double crop that. So we actually pulled off a tremendous amount of oats out here. Ended up being probably one of the more successful things we've done out there. And on top of it, we got cover crop established after that in a drought last year and got grazing value out of there. So we also had a field day here in 2020. That was a really cool one. We teamed up with Richland County, kind of building on that relationship through Ccsp. We were at Joe Brecker's, one of our board members, pretty well-renowned soil health specialist. We kind of hit his wide row corn. And then we also visited Josh and Wally Hardy over in Richland County, another guy who used to be the corn growers president. And they were doing some really cool stuff. They had an oats, clover, dual crop, where basically they went in there, got the oats, came back, planted clover, and harvested that after they did the oats for, ironically, horse people. So that's bizarre that keeps happening. And then the other one that was really astonishing, they were doing polycropping with soybeans and corn on the same field. It didn't work great for them that year because the beans got a little higher and the corn didn't. So there's some struggles there. And then on our field day in 2021, we went out to Mark Niener's. NRCS had a soil pit out there. Abby Wick came down and we had a nice talk about soil health. And actually we had a strip till demonstration because the biggest thing is people need to see some of this, more of this stuff hitting the street. Just actually see it, watch it, learn. So that was a great opportunity. Soybean population study, and then we had corn with broadcast seeded rye. So just a variety of different practices highlighted out there. We pulled this, we had 4 presentations in 2 weeks, Leslie?
It was a lot.
And we were gonna do more, we were gonna do Charnel's, but about that time was the Delta variant, and I was exhausted, and I just didn't wanna deal with more COVID, so that pretty much wrapped us up for the year. Alright, any questions?
Are you doing anything for 2022?
Yes. Haven't figured it out yet. Right now, we've got, still have the ride carryover on stuff that was aerial seeded on Mark Gainers. Usually we'll bring back, it always flops from corn to soybeans, so now the soybeans will go back into that. On Charnel's, we still have, the cover crops are still out there, we have rye in all of that. The annual ryegrass is out there. We're trying to figure out, usually we do live row corn. To fertilize it this year would take all of our donation money from Integra. So that provides some real life challenges. I mean, it does. Whereas it used to be a fraction of our free money, now it's all of our free money. So it's real world stuff, and that's the tough part about doing a demo site is you're really on the hook for farming and figuring it out. So again, no lack of challenges in the world. Any other questions?
All right, if not,